So because we begin late, we are allowed to use still 10 more minutes for the discussion. So if you have any question, please again send us the question. But I already have a few questions we can talk about all together. So a question for all of you, three of you. So do you tolerate retinal fluid in DME or not? And how important do you think is to this fluid to disappear quickly? So I don't know, we can decide, or ladies first.
Ladies
Please.
first, okay. Well, I don't tolerate intraretinal fluid. I think intraretinal fluid is damaging to vision, and that's really the fluid we have in DME. So I think it's very important to get rid of all the intraretinal fluid, and I think it's important to do it as quickly as possible for things like HRF, but also because it allows you to extend the interval sooner, and that just helps everybody. So I don't tolerate fluid if I can help it.
Shubhas?
So yeah, I fundamentally agree with what Nancy said, and I would just highlight something I mentioned in my cases is that I always want to see what my particular patient's vision is when they're completely dry. So one scenario where I might consider tolerating fluid is that if when I got them even drier, the vision didn't improve further or something of that sort, then you might say, well, you know, that's as good as this patient's vision can get. The danger of tolerating fluid is that you don't know whether you've maxed out your patient's vision. So that's why I would not be in favor of tolerating fluid. And I would say with regards to the speed of resolution, I guess, you know, we did do some post hoc analyses of protocol I, for example, where we showed that patients who had more rapid resolution of fluid, they tended to do better in terms of their visual outcomes. So there's some data to support that getting the retina dry quickly is also important.
Thank you, Paul. What's your opinion?
No, I agree with that. I think that if we see an early resolution, it really is a good sign. And we're certainly seeing that with this drug.
So, I mean, you summarize, and we agree all together that the easier and the shorter time you can get rid of this fluid, you have the possibility to have a normal retina and also to extend, as Nancy, you also mentioned. And in some patients, for a long time, despite the treatment, the fluid persists in the retina. So what's your approach about this? At some point, should we extend? Should we continue? Nancy, what's your...
I'll answer that. I think that you do need to probably have some additional treatment periods. And I think we really have to tailor the treatment to each person. So there will be some people, and you saw in that heat map, you know, there's about 10% of people who still need sort of 4 weekly. So there'll be a group of people who need a regular treatment for a longer period. And so I think we have to accept that.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that, you know, as I said, I don't like to tolerate fluid. I like to try to get it dry by some means or another. And so it's good that we have treatments that target other mechanisms. And so I think you have to persist and try to get completely dry using different combinations of treatments before I would consider extending.
So Romina, I'll say that I love your 2-week test. I use it myself. I interpret it slightly differently. I wouldn't put continuing anti-VEGF on my list. I know it was your first choice and not the one you chose, but I would, if I still have fluid when I have near maximal amounts of VEGF in the eye, I just have to think to myself, I have to do something else. And for me, that something else was steroids. But now I have faricimab, so I can, if that patient's not already on faricimab, I can go to it and again, possibly expose why VEGF monotherapy just isn't sufficient for this patient's disease.
And Nancy, how important is this inhibition and blocking the Ang2, finally, in your point of view?
What's the difference? Well, I think we can look to clinical trial data. You know, clinical trials are designed to get a drug approved, but the real benefit to us is the whole series of evidence generation that comes out of the clinical trials that suggests meaningful differences, and as clinicians, we get to decide if that's meaningful. So like faster drying, I think that's meaningful to me and my patients because I can extend them sooner. So I think there are significant Ang-2 effects that are meaningful to doctors and patients coming out of these post hoc analyses.
Vas, do you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Paul, you showed cases that came late to your clinics, but how important is to treat and to control disease early?
Well, I think we really want, I mean, the 4 loading doses is really important. And I think it's, if you can see early response and a rapid response, which we see now, I think this is really important. It gives the patient an idea that their vision will improve quite quickly, and this will keep them coming. I think that's a really important issue. I mean, we're not going to see it in everyone. Some people will be boggy and be slow, the slow slog that we're used to. But I think we're now seeing a faster improvement with this new drug, and presumably that reflects the dual mechanism. So I think it's an important sign that the patient is responding, and it's really good to see that.
So before closing the session and closing remark, I have a question that I want to ask for all of you. So Paul, as you are talking, you first. So what gave you confidence to use this drug, faricimab, in naive patients?
Well, I think we've been using anti-VEGF for a long time. The thought of a dual mechanism which could help to dry out the retina faster, and we saw the results from the Rhine and the Rhine and Yosemite trial, showing that rapid reduction in fluid. And I think that gave me the thought that this really would be a good agent to use. And that's why I made a decision early in the year that we would really start to treat treatment-naive patients with this agent, and we'd give them the priority.
As?
Well, I think that with DME in particular, it's pretty clear that there are likely multiple mechanisms at play for many patients. And certainly before we had faricimab, we all saw many patients where it was just difficult to get them dry. And so it was exciting to have another option for patients, and certainly the trial data was compelling. So,
thank you. And Nancy?
So the United States was the first to get FDA approval, but I was in the clinical trials, so I was an early adopter for naive and switch patients. But if people are now taking it up into their practice, they really should be reassured by the fact that we've had it in the US since early 2022, that it's all around the world now, that there are enough vials out there to have confidence to use it. But in the early days in the United States, it was really the clinical trial experience that made me feel that it was going to be safe.